Hello, boys and girls out there in YouTube Pipeland. This is my first one for a long time. In my Bing's favorite, Savinelli, I've put some different tobacco in it. I've put Granger in it. I haven't used that in a long time. I still got that whole jar there. Well, it's March, and it's usually nigh on to summer here when it's March. But the temperatures drop back down into the 50s, which makes it cool. And we know spring's coming. And now's the month for baseball to begin. Which when I was growing up was the all-American sport. And I wondered, how come it's not the all-American sport today? How come football's become the all-American sport? Because, like I say, when I was growing up, it was baseball we followed. We collected baseball cards and memorized statistics on each player. So I had a long think about it. And I think that as the 50s passed into the 60s, and we baby boomers got older and got into college, mamas and papas would stick by the television watching those college football games. That their precious sons were playing in. And with that, baseball slipped into the background. Excuse me. But when I was a boy in the 50s, it was baseball. That was the sport we kept up with. In the springtime, our thoughts would turn to baseball. And about the time I was in the 5th grade, I joined Little League because I wanted to play baseball. Even got the uniform. I remember that day, that first day, I put on my uniform. It was real light, almost like pajamas, real thin wool. Felt good. It was cool. Had stripes up and down and on the sleeves and down the legging, and the number 13 on my back. It weighed heavy on me. 13. Lord have mercy. What a number to carry around. Well, that day I had put that on, I was getting ready to go to the school, which was about a mile across the golf course, and decided I wouldn't take my bike because I was afraid I'd get some grease on my brand new uniform. Light gray, nice, felt right, fit nice. Like I say, it was like pajamas. It just felt good. And I was on the team. And I grabbed my glove. My very own Spalding leather. The real McCoy. And I remember the day that I had gotten it. Mom and Dad had driven into town and we were in the 5 and dime. My folks were doing some shopping. My mother had gone somewhere in the store, probably to look at female dainties or something, I don't know. Because Dad didn't follow her, but he was looking around to see where she was, to see what she was buying. And I eyed a baseball glove, just where I could reach it. And I pulled it down, slipped it on my hand, hit my fist into that pocket. It fit just right, perfect fit. Had that nice new leather feel to it. I kept doing that. My dad looked down at me and said, "What are you doing, son?" I said, I really want this baseball glove, Dad. Can you buy it for me? He said, "No, we can't afford that. Put it back." So I put it back on the shelf and just kept looking at it. I said, "Are you sure you can't buy that for me, Dad?" I said, "I'm on the Little League team now, and I need a glove of my own." He said, "We can't afford it, son. Can't you borrow one?" I said, "Yeah, I guess I could borrow one. Everybody else has their own glove." Kind of rubbing it in, but my dad wasn't listening. He was looking around the store for my mother. So while he was doing that, I just, knowing I couldn't get it, I looked up at that glove and went into a trance, and there I was on the pitching mound, had my glove in my hand, looking at the batter from the opposite team walking up to the plate. He took his stance. He was ready. I was willing, but I looked real close at what the catcher was doing back there, and he gave his signals, and I did that. So he tried another one, and I said, and on the third one, I said, now I leaned back, got that ball gripped just right, wound up, and I threw that ball as hard as I could, and it went straight through the air where the bat had gone. Steve Reich won. and they arced the ball up to me, and excuse me, and I caught it with my genuine Spalding leather glove. I was dreaming all this. The focus of my dream being that glove on that shelf, but my mind was on the field with that glove on my hand. And as I caught the ball, I looked around at first where the guy on the other team was edging his way toward second. And as I looked, he sidled back over to the first base, and I just said, "That's good." And we went through the same routine with the pitcher. First signal, second one, I said, he got ready, I got ready. I coiled myself around and I threw that ball as hard as I could. Whap! Right into his glove, right through the box where it was supposed to be, and the bat was half a second too late. Once again, strike two. Well, caught the glove, he threw it back, and I looked behind me, and the guy was edging. And I turned real quick, and I threw it to first base. The guy on first caught it and threw it to second, and the guy on second tagged him out. Everybody was excited. 1 out. He threw it back to me, and I caught it. Threw it into my glove a few times just to feel that punch. Looked out at the catcher once again and decided to go with his first signal. And the crowd was just yelling, "Ricky, Ricky, Ricky." And all of a sudden it was my dad who was not yelling, but he was saying, "Ricky, are you okay?" I looked up at him. I didn't know where I was for a second. I still thought I was on the pitcher's mound. Well, he said, "All right, there's your mama. Let's get ready and go." And I said, "Dad, are you sure you can't get that glove for me? I could sure use it." He said, "No, I can't afford it, son." And my mother walked up just about that time. And she asked my dad, "What's up? What are y'all talking about?" And he said, "Ricky wants me to buy some silly glove for a baseball team." And she said, "Well, why can't you get it?" And he said, "It costs too much." I said, "We can't afford that." And I said, "Please," which rarely ever got anything from my dad. But in this case, my mother said, "Well, you do know he joined Little League, don't you?" He said, "Little League? What's Little League?" She said, "It's the baseball team." He said, "Baseball?" Dad didn't know anything from sports or anything that kids did, because as a kid, he had to leave school early when he was about 15, I think, and go to work. It was during the Depression, and to survive, the family needed the money that he was earning, or that he would earn. So he never got time to go play with his mates, and baseball wasn't something they played over there. She said, why don't we get it? And once again he says, it's just too much, dear. We can't afford that. It's just some toy he wants to get. And I started to say, it's not a toy, but my mother looked at me real quick and I caught the look. I kept my mouth shut. And she said, how much is it? And I jumped up, pulled it down and said, it's $10. And she said, we could afford that. He said, how? And she said, I can cut back on groceries and such and build up the money and we can get it for him. He said, you sure you can do that? She said, yeah, I think it would be good if he had his own glove. I'm sure all the other teammates do. And Dad said, well, he said he could borrow one. And my mother said, I think he'd feel much better if he owned his own glove, especially since he's got the uniform. My dad didn't even know I had a uniform, much less know that I was on the baseball team, Little League, because he didn't know what Little League was. My dad was a hard-working man, and he took care of his family the best way he knew how, and that was to earn the money to keep us going. And I think it was about that time that he was negotiating to buy this lot that I'm living on. So things were pretty tight. And children's toys were not something that he was really concerned with. But anyway, he said, if you think that you can manage that, then okay, we'll get it for him. So before they could say anything, I ran up to the counter with the glove in hand. And when they got there, Dad pulled out the money out of his wallet and gave it to the cashier. And I ran outside real fast with that thing clutched in my hand because we were still at the store. He could still change his mind. But he didn't. And when he came outside, he said, Ricky, you better thank your mother because she's the reason you got that glove. So I went over and I hugged my mother and said, thank you, Mama. I'll be the best player on the team. And she said, Ricky, you don't have to be the best. Just enjoy yourself. And I said, all right. And I was thinking about this as I was walking to the school to catch the bus to go to the first game of the season. I got to the school and I saw them loading up the bus and I ran over there real quick. And the guy with the clipboard was saying, and who are you? I said, Ricky. He said, okay, that's everybody. Get on the bus, kid. Let's go. Well, needless to say, I never got to the pitcher's mound where I was throwing those strikes. My first time at bat, I stood there transfixed over the plate, holding that bat, watching that ball, and that kid threw this ball. He threw it so fast that I didn't even see it. It was in his hand while my bat was still above my shoulder. 3 times. Get out of here, kid. And the coach came over and he said, go sit on that bench, boy. And that's where I sat the entire season. I didn't even get to go out to play in left field like I normally did. It was right field that I used to play when we were in the sand lot, so to speak. Nobody ever hit it the right field. So it was pretty safe for me being out there, according to the team. Well, after the season was over, and the only time my my glove caught a caught a baseball is when my neighbor and I would throw the ball back and forth because I never got to play. I just wasn't any good. I just wasn't any good. Sports were not my thing. I did try, but I wasn't any good. Batting average of 0.00 and RBI 0. One of my teammates said, as we were riding back, if somebody was picking on me about being such a poor player, and he said, "You got to remember that boy's from England. He plays cricket." And I went, "What?" But at least he was trying to help me, I guess, because those guys were picking on me for being such a bad player. So that beautiful, beautiful glove stayed up on the top shelf in my closet. I don't know what happened to it. I guess I either gave it away or my dad threw it out with so much other stuff when he said, "Gotta get rid of your childish things, boy." If he'd only known how much money some of those things would be raking in over eBay now, especially all those funny books I had, man, they would be raking into dough. But we still talk baseball and still collected baseball cards, chewed that bubble gum, memorized those statistics, and kept up with Mickey Mantle and Pee Wee Reese. And it's a shame, but I'm almost inclined to believe that that's why baseball has slipped into the background and football has come into the forefront. It's because of all those boys who went to college and started playing football. I knew in first grade when they talked me into playing football and gave us uniforms with pads and everything, 6 years old, out there on a field. And you don't know the torture it took to get those pads on and a shirt on when I was 6. And I knew right then I didn't want to play that. So my sports career was no shining moment in any of the fields, including basketball that I went out for too in grammar school. I found out in grammar school that sports were not my thing. But I always remember how my mother stood up to my dad, which she never did, never did. But she knew how much I wanted that glove, and she stood up to him and made it happen. And that glove meant the world to me because of that. My parents were good people, and I miss them. So much for, thanks for joining me for a pipe. And if you have Granger, try it. It's not bad. Not bad at all. I think I detect a touch of mayonnaise in this. I'll have to ask Paladin Piper what he thinks about that, if there's a touch of mayonnaise in this. But I detect it. I know I do. All right, folks. So much for my, good Lord, so much for my half hour. Take care of yourselves. It's a Sunday afternoon. Beautiful day outside, a little chilly. But I hope your day is just as pretty as mine. Take care of yourselves. God bless you till the next time. Bye-bye.